Sometimes the most profound truths are hidden in the most unexpected details. And today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating puzzles you can find, tucked away right at the end of the Bible. We're talking about a vision of a perfect city, an incredible future, but with a giant, shocking omission. Something crucial is missing. So let's figure out what it is and why it changes everything.
So, the book of Revelation, it all culminates in this just breathtaking vision. The Apostle John sees this new Jerusalem, this holy city descending from the heavens. And the way he describes it, it's a place of splendor you can barely even imagine. Streets of gold, foundations made of every precious gem you can think of. It's meant to be the grand finale, the ultimate picture of God and humanity together, a perfect end to the story. And right here, this is where the mystery starts. Think about it. For literally centuries, the temple was the absolute center of worship. It was the spot, the one place on earth where God's presence was supposed to dwell. So to even imagine a perfect, holy city without a temple, that would have been totally unthinkable. It's like picturing a body without a heart. So what's the deal? Where did it go? Now, what's so cool about this puzzle is that the Bible doesn't leave us hanging. It doesn't make us guess. The answer is right there in the very next thought. And let me tell you, it is an answer that completely reframes how we think about worship and the presence of God. And there it is. The temple isn't just gone. It's been upgraded. It's been transformed. It's no longer a place, not a building you can walk into. The temple is now a person. Or, to be precise, two persons in one Godhead, the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb, Jesus Christ. See the shift? It's not about going to a sacred space anymore. It's about living in a sacred person. And get this incredible revelation wasn't some brand new idea that just popped up at the end of the book. Nope, it was actually the fulfillment of a really cryptic prophecy that Jesus himself had made centuries earlier. Okay, so picture the scene. Jesus is standing in Jerusalem, right there at the physical temple, the massive one that took 46 years to build. He's just caused a huge stir, driving out the money changers, and the religious leaders are, well, they're furious. They come up to him and demand to know who gave him the authority to do this. And his answer, it just left them totally scratching their heads. You can just feel the disconnect, right? They hear temple, and all they can think of is the giant stone building right in front of them. So to them, his claim sounds absolutely ridiculous. You're going to rebuild this in 3 days? No way. But Jesus was playing a completely different game. He wasn't talking about a building. He was redefining the word itself. He was talking about his own body, which would be destroyed and then raised up 3 days later. All right, so to really get how huge this is, we've got to geek out for just a second on one little word in the original Greek. The specific word that's used in both John's Gospel and here in Revelation, well, it unlocks a whole other level of meaning. See, in Greek, there were two main words for temple. One was hieron, which meant the whole complex, all the courts, the porches, the whole area where people could gather. But the word used here is nas, and nas meant something way more specific. It was the inner sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, the most sacred room where God's actual presence was believed to dwell. So when John says there's no nas in the New Jerusalem, he's making a radical point. There's no need for a tiny, restricted room for God anymore, because God himself and the Lamb fill up the entire city. Now, this isn't just some abstract theology. This whole idea, this prophecy, it all comes crashing together in one dramatic, history-splitting moment. It's the moment the old system was shattered for good and this new reality burst onto the scene. Just like he said would happen, the temple of his body was torn down. On the cross, Jesus' own prophecy began to come true. That was part one. And at that very same moment, something insane happens back at the physical temple. The veil, this massive, thick curtain that separated the Holy of Holies, the Naos, from everyone else, was ripped in two. And not from the bottom up, like a person could do it, from the top down. This wasn't a random act. This was a divine statement. So what's the big deal? What does a torn curtain really mean? It was a symbol that the old way was over. The barrier between regular people and the direct presence of God was gone. Access wasn't for a special priest once a year after a bunch of rituals anymore. Because of the sacrifice of Jesus, the true temple, the way to God was now thrown wide open. For everyone. So, let's put it all together. What we're seeing here is a complete revolution in what it means to worship. It's a fundamental move away from a religion centered on a physical place to a relationship centered on a living person. Think about it this way.
The whole model of worship got flipped on its head. We go from a building made of stone to a person who is alive. We go from restricted access through rituals to a direct personal relationship. It's no longer about worshiping in a location. It's about abiding in the Lamb. That's why there's no temple building in the New Jerusalem. You don't need to go to the temple because God and the Lamb are the temple, and their presence is absolutely everywhere.
And so that's the question I'll leave you with. If the temple isn't a building we have to travel to, but a person we can live in through faith, how does that change things for us? Right here, right now. How does that change how we think, how we live, how we worship? It's a pretty profound shift, and it's the powerful truth behind the mystery of the city with no temple.